to where they will be facing the audit investigation.
Hi, Nola, can you flight the agenda, please?
Recording in progress.
Okay. I think we must start now. I understand there are members that will be flying, so it will assist us if we start now. Honorable members, please bear with me. I can't open my camera today. Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure, Honorable Minister Zikalala, Honorable DM, Swartz, DG, Mr. Mtakana, and all the members from the department, the team that supports this Portfolio Committee, greetings to you all. Honorable members, as we continue with our work of the Portfolio Committee, that of oversighting the department, that of making the department to be accountable for all its plans, we are still continuing even today. Today we'll be receiving the briefing by the department on its audit action plan. I think you will remember just recently we had Auditor General in our physical meeting where Auditor General was bringing to our attention some of the things that are happening in the department. Oh, sorry, I think I even forgot the issue of the apologies. Just allow me to do this briefing and then I'll allow you, Nola, to do the apologies. So today we will be getting that audit action plan from the department and also on the annual performance plans of the 2024-2025 financial year from the department. As we know yesterday some of the issues that were raised by the members, especially when it comes to contractors, is the issue of women, is the issue of people living with disabilities. We are in the Human Rights Month and also the International Women's Month, that is March. So whatever that we are getting, whatever plans, Mr. Mtagana, that you are bringing to us, please recognize that this is the Human Rights Month. There are issues that we have raised previously because we know that the department is not doing them. So the department must empower women. We can't be, since 2019, be getting the same percentage of how we are empowering women. We are not actually seeing the results. You must empower people living with disabilities. We must see that you are actually practicing human rights, not only on paper and the slogans that we go out there saying around. With those few words, honorable members, the department, you are all welcome in this meeting. Can we get apologies, Ms. Martinez?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Honorable members, Minister DM and our colleagues. The apologies that we have are from Honorable Mashele, who's currently seeing his doctor, and there's also an apology from Honorable Matebula, who's writing an exam. There's another apology from Honorable Thring, who's attending another meeting that is coinciding with this one. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
I'm like speaking. Thank you, Nola, for those apologies that you have presented to us. I now invite the department minister, if minister is in the platform, to introduce today's briefings.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members.
DM, yes, dear. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. Honorable Chair and Honorable members, I will do the introduction because the Minister is attending Cabinet today. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. We will today present the audit plans and the APP. And I must say that, the Chair, we have tried our best to work around aligning the APP to the finances of the department. And we are also working around, Chair, and have started working around the KPIs so that they talk to the outcomes of the performance. Because what we found in the department was that the outcomes of the performance were not talking to the KPIs. But I can confidently say, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, that we have sat down with internal audit, looked at what the Auditor General had red flagged us as a department over a period of 3 years, and in some instances where branches were not even complying over a period of 5 years. So what we have tried to do, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, is to work around that so that we can then work in a seamless manner that will give us better results and results that will show us performance in a better form in terms of what we are supposed to do. And also that we have also tried, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, that what we put in the APP should be the priorities. And in this instance, we would have 6 priorities per branch that would have come from the cost containment, so that we don't have branches that plan things just for the sake of planning, that plan things just for the sake of having them in their KPIs, and then there are no deliverables with impact and performance at the end. But as always, Honorable Chair and Honorable members, will be guided by your inputs, by your oversight, and the positive criticism that you give us, so that we are able to bring ourselves up to speed in terms of what we are supposed to do to deliver services. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. I would, through you, Chair, allow the DG to then introduce the teams that are going to present today. Thank you.
Thank you, DM. Over to you, DG.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, DM. Good morning, colleagues from Public Works and other stakeholders who are with us. Chairperson, we're going to present to you and the committee 2 reports. As you've guided, Chairperson, we will start with the audit action plan, wherein our CFO will take us through. And then after that, we will then focus on the APP, to which then the chair will then guide us after that one. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm with the CFO here. He's going to talk from this platform. We're together. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee. Good morning to Deputy Minister and the colleagues. I hope, Chair, you can hear me before I proceed.
We can hear you clearly, CFO, and even the slides are showing.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will cover a number of areas. I won't deal much with the audit outcome because it's known, but I will then deal with the audit risk and the action plans linked to that, and the recommendations that were put by AG, to what extent we have implemented them. And there were also commitments that the minister made based on the report that was presented to this committee, where we'll reflect on those commitments and also give you the progress on those. But given the time constraint, Chair, some of the things I'll just summarize because we are also dealing with the APP. Having said that, Chairperson, the main vote was not qualified. Actually, we received unqualified audit opinion, which we've been consistent over the years now. The only concern that AG really raised on the main vote was on performance, where some branches then were qualified, such as EPWP, construction project management, and RAMS. Then the audit risk that we had to deal with, Chair, I know you requested the audit action plan. However, we have also provided progress, how far we are in terms of implementing the audit action plans that we have articulated, which were presented to Auditor General, our internal audit and the audit committee, as well as National Treasurer. So the first audit risk that AG raised when they were dealing with the performance was the roles and responsibilities that could not be verified and measured as they were not outlined in our APP. So what we then said, we'll then revise our TID to reflect roles and responsibilities. Chair, that has been completed. We don't have a problem on that now. It has been resolved. There was also an issue of overstatement of actual achievement on the annual performance report. What we then said there, we will then provide training to our officials so that when we submit our performance report, it must be accurate, valid, and complete in terms of our performance report. That process has been completed. We also said we'll then review our quarterly reports together with portfolio of evidence. And that process has been completed for quarter 1 and up to quarter 3. So we are really making progress in that area. We also said we'll submit the quarterly performance report to M&E. That has been completed, Chair. Then we'll implement consequence management for non-compliance. So instances where some officials throughout the department are not complying, We also issue consequence management letters for late submissions because it affects the review process. Excuse me. And that process, it's ongoing, Chair. As it happens, we issue consequence management letters to the extent that 8 letters were issued to the affected officials for late submissions. The next audit risk, Chair, which is the third one, AG raised number of indicators as planned in the APP were not consistent with the reported indicators in the annual performance report. What then we said in that one as a plan, we said we need to amend the wording of the KPI and TIDs in order to align to the branches for reporting. That process, Chair, also was completed. The GRC has amended all those TIDs that were supposed to be amended. Chair, I'm sorry, my slides now are not moving. My apologies. Let me try to stop sharing and I'll reshare. It's not moving on my side. I'm sorry about that. It's still not moving. I'm not sure if Ausnola has my presentation. Chair, if maybe she can help me. It's stuck on my side.
CFO, perhaps I can, yes, I was just about to suggest that you check it out and then you try to log in, you try to share it again as a screen.
Okay. I'm trying that. Okay, still it's not. Let me try the.
Can you assist Nola, but also the some of your colleagues from the department, they need to come in. Who else can be given sharing rights?
Lwazi, if you can help me.
Can you give Nola Lwazi sharing rights?
I'm unable to locate Lwazi on the system.
So Lwazi is not in. Also give Mtomen.
I am in, Chair.
But there is no name. That's why we can't see you, Lwazi. It's just written guest here.
Aibo.
Serious.
Okay, let me try and put my name.
Yeah, it's just written guests. But you have been given sharing rights, Lwazi. Can you then continue?
I'm not sure if I may proceed because for the interest of time.
Okay, Lwazi is also going to assist you.
Okay, Chair. Chair, I'll still proceed with the hope that members may have the printed copy or their slides while Lwazi is assisting me. I then moved to PMTE chairperson on the audit metrics, which is slide number 9. Chair, the PMTE was qualified, Chair, but we are moving from disclaimer of 21-22, but 22-23 financial year, we received an improved audit outcome. I must emphasize, Chair, that as part of maybe your legacy reports that you are busy with, it's important to highlight that the immovable asset register that has been an issue since the office of the Auditor General has raised. Since the 6th administration started in 2020, the asset register was qualified and in 2021, it was unqualified. Then 21, 22, it was a disclaimer. And 22, 23, it was a qualified audit. It was unqualified, the asset register in particular. Why I'm saying this, Chair, it's the milestones that we have traveled in ensuring that our asset register, they get unqualified audit opinion, because that's a key area in our financial statements, which represent more than 90% in terms of the rand value. So as much as there might be challenges in our asset register, but AG has really give us a good report in that area to say, indeed, our asset register is complete. Our asset register exists. However, there are improvements that we continue to make. I thought, let me emphasize on that, because sometimes we think our asset register is in a mess. Our asset register is not in a mess. AG has really given us a good audit outcome in that area. Then, having said that, Chair, the areas where we were qualified, which I will cover then, what are we doing or what we have done? It's particularly on payables, which are accruals, commitments, and revenue. Those are the areas where we were qualified by Auditor General. Then going then to slide number 11, Chair, the action that we've put in place for the audit risk that was qualified, as I said, payables. What we then said we'll put as an action plan is to monitor progress on updating of call statuses amounting to 249,000 from November 2019 to March 2024, because the reason why we were qualified is because our calls were not updated, so we could not then account properly for all the calls or work that may have been done during that period. So that process, Chair, we are progressing very well to the extent that we've already dealt with 196,000 calls where we have updated the status, which really reduces the risk of future negative audit findings. We are left now with 53,000 calls. We do have our weekly meeting audit war rooms with all the regions where we are focusing on updating the status. So this will really improve the audit outcome if we maintain that momentum. Then the rest of the action plans, Chair, they are all completed. So I don't have to go into details for the interest of time, Chairperson. Then on leases, Chair, I think I will want to emphasize a lot on leases. Leases also as part of accruals, it was also part of the qualification. What we then said, Chair, we will perform monthly calculations to determine accruals and prepayments. We also said we'll validate prepayments with regions and initiate the recovery of confirmed overpayments. I must highlight this, Chair, as much as this is a big issue, but it's important also to reflect to say, when actually before we implemented SAGE and Archibus, we couldn't actually identify any overpayments. We couldn't also do proper reconciliations, to the extent that at a time, which is 2018, Chair, we were having 662 million overpayment as a result of leases, because it was coming from the legacy system which we are having PMIS. At a time we couldn't reconcile, hence AG was giving qualification as all the time. I must report, Chair, the current overpayments that we have discovered this year is only 8.5 million. So you can see that there is a lot of work that we are doing, as much as we are still having overpayments on leases, but it's really at a very small scale. And the reasons for that, Chair, is that you find that at a time when we sign a lease agreement, we calculate the parking base, And you find that when AG do inspection, you find that some of the parking bays are no longer in existence. Sometimes there is a redesign or to put something else. So it's something that RAMS is working hard also to do inspections to check if at the time of signing a lease, the parking bays are still the same, even the square meters of the building. So those are the things then AG that has highlighted even in the material irregularities that were reported 2 weeks ago. So I thought, let me emphasize on that. We are not saying things are good at this stage because we're still having overpayments of 8.5 million. And also we have the outstanding balance of that 662 that I reported to say, but we have also recovered a significant amount of that historical figure. So I thought I must highlight that. And we are also holding officials accountable where overpayments do happen to make sure that this area is appropriately dealt with and it mustn't continue to recur. Then, Chair, moving to property, plant and equipment, particularly the commitments where we were qualified. We then said we will prepare monthly quality reviews of updating WCS commitments. That process has been completed, Chair. Until January. We will continue to maintain that on monthly basis. Then we also said adjustment will be made for the 31st March 2023, where we were then qualified. That process also has been completed. We also said we'll update WCS system bi-weekly. We also said we'll institute disciplinary actions where applicable, where officials are not complying with these action plans. That is in progress, Chair, because we continue to do that, but it's something that we need to intensify. I spoke to the DDG CPM to say we really need to intensify this program to make sure that everyone comply. Then the other issue, some clients, Chair, they terminate the project, which become a matter that affect us. We have analyzed particularly DOD projects because DOD, in some instances, they will tell us that we mustn't proceed with a particular project despite the expenditure that may have been incurred. So we are then identifying all those areas to make sure that we deal with those things appropriately. And that process is in progress, Chairperson. Then revenue from exchange as a result of the recognized assets. Chair, we have compiled procedures to be approved. That's what we committed. The DG Race has approved that process. And we also said we'll obtain validated list of the recognized properties. And that is completed, Chair, whereby 2,699 improvements were recognized. It has gone through the review process, and we are currently busy determining the impact of that derecognition, where we are calculating revenue that need to be derecognized. And that process, Chair, is in progress. And I'm told that by today, our team is concluding the calculations. We will then write to National Treasury so that they can then approve that derecognition so that we can then account appropriately in our financial statements. Moving then to the commitments that the Minister made to AG, I must indicate, Chair, the Minister and the DM are taking seriously the issues that Auditor General has raised. To the extent that there are quarterly meetings that the Minister, DM are having with the executives of the Auditor General, not only the engagement manager, but senior executive of Auditor General, to the extent that 2 weeks ago, there was such a meeting. And there was an appreciation from the executive of the Auditor General that they appreciate the progress that we are making. And they appreciate the involvement of the Minister and the DM in this process to make sure that the audit outcome are improved in the department. To the extent, Chair, that the commitments that the Minister made to Auditor General were then MTSF indicators not included in the APP, which was the audit risk that was raised by Auditor General. The minister then committed that that will be addressed, where then all the targets that ought to be part of our MTSF are really part, and they are also part of the APP to the extent that that process has been completed, Chairperson. Then the second audit risk that the minister committed was weaknesses identified that hamper progress in infrastructure delivery. Chair, the minister then committed that he will investigate cancelled and delayed construction projects from the start to the end phase, and where the plans did not materialize, the responsible officials will be held accountable. I must indicate, Chair, that investigation has been concluded, is in the process of being routed to the accounting officer for approval, where then recommendations will be made whether to hold certain officials accountable, and it will depend what is the outcome of the investigation. Request the department to institute its own independent investigation on the issues of IDT. There was an issue of irregularity about a particular lease in IDT. The department is in the process of instituting an investigation. At that time, Chair, IDT was requested to do an investigation in this area, but there was then a discussion between Mr. Mtombeni and IDT to say it would be actually better to be for that investigation to be handled by the department so that we can remove any conflict of interest. So our DDG then is busy with that process to make sure that that matter is appropriately investigated. Then the third audit risk that where Minister made a commitment was poor maintenance of state-owned properties. The Minister then committed that there will be a development of state-owned property maintenance policy that will provide guidance on preventative maintenance. That policy, Chair, has been developed. It has gone through the structures of the department to the extent that we anticipate that policy to be approved before 31st March 2024. So there is also a progress in that area. I'm not going to go into details on other areas, Chair, because the main commitments that was committed, we are progressing very well. However, there are certain things that we are also doing to make sure that we succeed. But what I will also just like to highlight is progress on D, where then there is also a workshop strategy that has been developed where we want to actually to have less reliance on service providers that respond to our day-to-day maintenance, where we will begin to use our workshops. I think is the outcry that also the portfolio committee has been making. Even yesterday, there was an issue to say what kind of material that we ought to buy to keep to respond to maintenance issues. We are really resuscitating our workshops, particularly in big offices such as Pretoria, Cape Town, and Durban, where then our workshops will start to work. However, Chair, it comes with the budget and tools of trade that are required, because you need then to buy cars, you need to make sure that all systems are in place. So it's not something that will happen overnight, but we'll do them in phases, Chair. Then the second commitment on the same audit risk that the minister made was to facilitate development of refurbished, operate and transfer program, which was also presented to this committee a week ago. But what we must then indicate is that that strategy or program has been developed. It's being discussed at cabinet level. There was even a meeting with the Minister of Finance last night to discuss the same program. So I must say this program is receiving attention. There are many meetings that will be done between the department and National Treasury to make sure that this program become a success. However, there will be lessons learned as we start this program. To the extent that, Chairperson, there are certain facilities that have been identified, such as Telkom Towers, Civitas Public Works House, and many more properties that will be part of the phase 1 of this program to make sure that it's become a reality. Then slide 18, there was also an issue of poor maintenance of state-owned properties. Consequently, the state of owned infrastructure continued to decline. We then said, Chair, as part of the commitment that the minister made, was to then develop a strategy where we'll then find a way to say, how do we then take unused state properties and to give to communities where then it will comply with our program. And we also said we'll develop a standard operating procedure on how to engage Section 5 of GIAMA. The circular that is known by almost all the members now, Circular 135, we have implemented that circular while we are doing other programs like ROT, to the extent that some of the leases have been already processed, which with the projected revenue of 101 million. So it's a demonstration that we are trying to work hard to generate revenue using the state properties. Furthermore, Chair, we are also looking at the custodian asset management plan, where then we are aiming to reduce leases significantly by implementation of the prisons development that we are busy with. Some of them, such as Salvagop, it's at an advanced stage. There are other prison developments that we are doing in other areas, where we then anticipate to reduce about 20 leases to the value of 230 million per annum. But then we'll provide more details, Chairperson, through DDG Suban about this program if the committee requires that. Then the next audit risk, which the minister also responded to AG, was the management of leases, properties, particularly to reduce month-to-month leases and also where there are overpayments. I must indicate, Chair, that the minister did commit to AG that there will be investigation of the 10 highest paid landlords in the department and also to identify overpayments. That process, Chair, is in progress. The reason why it's in progress, when AG made a recommendation to minister, was that these leases must be subjected to investigation by SIU. You know, Chairperson, the process of SIU need to via through president, there must be a proclamation. So it takes time, Chair. So there was then an agreement between AG and GRC to say maybe the quick process will be to appoint a service provider that will perform this investigation. So that process is underway, Chairperson. We believe as early as 1st April, it will have commenced, Chair. Then the next one, Chair, where we also made a commitment was for the accounting officer to take decisive actions on employees who continue to override system when overpayments are made. Chair, that process is also underway. Consequence management has been implemented. However, I must indicate also, as I said earlier on, we are making a huge significant progress when it comes to reduction of overpayments, as I reported to say this year from April to 28 Feb, we only had 8.5 million overpayments, which has drastically reduced compared to previous years because of controls that we are putting in place. Then I have details of the commitments that minister made, which are too detailed. I'm not going to go through them, except just to highlight just one or two that I think they are key. Is particularly on rental rates not aligned to the market, where then we said we will then renegotiate leases. That's slide number 21. Leases have been renegotiated to the extent that we have savings of about 594 million, Chair. So these are the things that, Chair, we are doing. We also told Auditor General to say it's also important when they report, they begin to report positive things that we are doing, where they must verify such things and begin to report, not only to report negative things as if there is nothing that we are doing. So that was also welcomed, Chairperson, by Auditor General to say No, now they realize that there is a lot of work that we are doing, as much as we have also a lot of things that we are still struggling on. So I thought, let me also emphasize on that, Chairperson. Then I think the rest of these details I won't go through because of time. The slide that I want to focus on, Chair, it's slide number 25. The reason, Chair, we want to emphasize on this slide, it's for a specific reason to say there was a comment by Auditor General to say clients actually, they want to do things on their own because we are failing to provide quality service to them. I must highlight, Chair, to say you have a portfolio of a big portfolio such as ours, where clients' departments are in occupation of these properties, about 59,000 properties. But the same clients, they are only willing to give us 5.6 billion. So you can see, Chair, in these slides to say, when we went to Treasury, we said for us then to do proper work on these facilities, we need about 13.5 billion, but we were only given 5.6 billion, which then result to a shortfall of about 8.3 billion. So you can then imagine, Chair, we want to implement workshops, we want to implement a lot of programs that will begin to respond to maintenance of these facilities. But the funding that we are not getting is not adequate. As much as we are implementing ROTs and all other programs, the success factor of that program also is dependent on the client's department, whether they will be able then to pay the rental that will then be equivalent of the service that will have been provided to them. So as I said, Chair, for the MTF, actually, we are looking at 25 billion shortfall. So the next slide says to pick up some of the examples. You find out, Chair, that actually the same client, when it's a lease properties from private sector, they are willing to pay 120 Rand per square meter because that's the market-related rental. But when it comes to state facilities, some clients, it's for Rand 80. What will you do with Rand 80? A client like Correctional Services is very big client, but we only get 12 Rand per square meter. So if you then compare what the private sector is providing at an average of 120 per square meter, we only get 12 Rand per square meter. There is nothing much that we can do with such an amount. I'm bringing this context, Chair, so that everybody understands to say the reason why state facilities, they are not in a good condition, it's because of the funding model, and it's also because of the attitude of clients. The same clients want to do things on their own and move out of state facilities, and yet they are not willing to fund these maintenance programs so that we can then be blamed properly to say we are not maintaining facilities. So I thought, let me paint this picture for the members to then fully have a full appreciation of this. Then, as I said, we are managing about 59,000 properties that are utilized by clients, where then actually what is required as an upfront investment over and above, Chairperson, the deficit that I've discussed of 8.3 billion. These properties at a desktop calculation, we require about 33.6 billion. This desktop exercise was done last year in July, Chair. Things may have moved now. Probably maybe we need about 40 billion if we were to really refurbish all the properties so that our clients then can become to be happy. However, that's where the ROT comes in and BOT, where then it can bridge this gap, because we do understand that the fiscus does not have such a big amount. So there is that acknowledgement on our side. I must then conclude to say we are then presenting this audit action plan together with the commitments that the Minister has made to Auditor General. and the progress that we are making in these audit action plans. So thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, CFO. Honorable members, can't we just receive all the presentations and then we interact with them at the same time? I'm proposing we deal with that, so that we don't deal with one presentation, ask questions, and then we deal with another one, ask questions. Let's just get all the presentations.
Agreed.
Thank you, Honorable Jobo. Can we then, DG, deal with the second presentation of the APP?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. This will be led by our DG, Mr. Lwazi Mahlangu, Chair. I'll maybe request him to really cover key issues because it's quite a thick presentation, Chairperson, so that at least the key areas of emphasis that the Chairperson and the committee would have a lot of interest in, he needs to highlight those. Thank you very much, Chair. Through you, Mr. Mahlangu.
Thank you, DG. And good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the committee, Minister, DM, and parliamentary support staff and colleagues from the department. I will then take you through the APP. Chairperson, is it showing on your side? Okay, now it's pulling the, okay.
Yes, Lwazi.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
So it's structured as 5 sections, but some of the sections we won't go into detail. So it's program performance information, the key strategic risk, the budget structure and estimates of the medium-term expenditure framework, and then the annexures, which I'll also just briefly explain how they connect into the entire document. Chair, allow me not to go into detail on the constitutional mandate and imperatives. This part of the section, but suffice to say, this is linked to a particular specific or particular indicator which basically talks about the compliance universe. So this section is covered by that compliance universe. We are currently measuring top 20, which I'll go into detail on it. Some of them, you'll see them, they are broken down, especially key legislative mandates, they are broken down into certain KPIs that are managed at the program level. Slide 8, vision, mission, and values. I won't go into detail on that. And then the contextual background, because this is part of the 6th administration, and also closing off the last financial year of the administration, we're basing it, this plan and the strategic plan at the APP is still based on the priorities of the 6th administration: economic transformation and job creation, education, skills and health, consolidated social work. But some of these areas are related to the department's mandate, and then we have broken it down and how we also show that. And inherent in that, Chair, I'll also highlight the 5 critical ministerial priorities that are also embedded into the minister's performance agreement, and how these are then how we have developed key performance indicators to also give effect to those priorities of the minister. And then we also take off after SONA, some of the commitments that are made in SONA. We then also do a SONA injunctions, in which we then develop KPIs to assist into that. We are guided by the external environment in which we operate, Chair. And I'm going to be linking some of the areas in this presentation to the presentation made by Mr. Stolle, CFO, in relation to the market, as well as some of the areas, because an example is the leasing environment. The slide he was talking about, the leasing aspect and the landlords in that we pay. That is a market space in which we operate in relation to the nature of the demand, market demand and supply factors in relation to the leases. So we consider that in our external environment, and how we then reprioritize our KPIs in relation to that. So this basically talks about that general overall economic landscape of the department. Then we look at zoom into the micro aspect of it, which is the property in industry. We look at the regulatory aspect of the of government as a whole and the impact of that, as well as the impact that we seek to then contribute to through employment creation mechanism. But we're also focusing on the deliberate agenda of transformation, and we also look at from a regulatory point of view how we then influence the transformation of a particular sector, in this case built environment, construction and property, but also looking at the skills pipeline that seeks to then use your demand and supply components into from the schools into the candidacy program and up until they graduate. So we also look into that. And then inherently, we're then looking at the social long-term economic impact of creating jobs that then will address the issues of unemployment, and then the infrastructure projects will also be used as a vehicle or mechanism to stimulate growth that will then also create those jobs. So all of these, Chair, also embed the overall infrastructure development and service delivery, where we're looking at the infrastructure fund model and how we fund those different types of funding for infrastructure development. We also talk about SIPs, and then we also talk about regulation within the environment of infrastructure as well as construction. Job massification, we'll see that through the EPWP component, we're also doing that, and then through also the maintenance program, we'll also be looking at those areas of creation, job creation. We're also looking at contribution to the land reform, as also highlighted in terms of the Constitution, Section 25. We're also looking at how we contribute that. There will be an indicator that I will also talk about on how we then contribute to that land reform, as well as GBVF, gender-based violence and femicide, that will also contribute to that. And also how we also seek to address energy crisis within the component of infrastructure, as well as land release to other state organs that will also improve on their infrastructure through that land that has been released for that, such as your ESCOM and other parastatals that are in the space. So this basically shapes that whole environment of external environment in which we operate, and that's where you will see the issues are coming up in terms of how the mechanism that we use, such as BOT and ROT, that are coming in. Internally, Chair, I won't go into detail. Internally, we focus on what mechanism and systems and processes we have to then complement, or rather give effect to the external environment that we have. Starts off with change management in the internally, service delivery improvement plans, addressing audit issues which basically relate to weaknesses within the systems in the organization. The presentation made by CFO, we're looking at that then we talk of business processes. And I would have seen that, you would have recalled that yesterday, even in the meeting yesterday, there was that discussion on reviewing systems within the organization, ICT assessment of that to give architecture of ICT to give effect to the components and modules that are required, as well as looking at a big macro business delivery model of public works, which again links to what the CFO was saying, that if we are getting 12 Rand vis-a-vis 120 Rand in the market, that then requires a different funding model, and that would be embedded into a big scheme of macro business model of the organization. So, and then we also look at in the individual capacity. I think one of the issues that's coming from the presentation earlier by the CFO was the issue of consequence management, and this is where the ethics compliance, as well as within the infrastructure space, would be looked into. Challenges within the SCM, the value chain that will be dealt with through contract management, as well as monitoring that. And then one of the issues, again, you would have recalled yesterday from the presentation as well, there were issues around capacity and the skill set. There's an organization-wide skills assessment that we are also dealing with that. And then to manage the entire environment, because we're operating in an environment outside, there will be a risk that will be associated with that. And then that's where the maturity within the risk assessment as well as strategy. Hence, towards the end, I will also highlight the risk risk of the organization that we're managing. And lastly, looking at the clean audit, which will be run through this process that the CFO has developed, has just presented on the audit action plan. Then this then takes us, Chair, to the program structure in terms of the key performance indicators and the targets. Chairperson, in this section, I'll present it in twofold. One, there will be a table that represents the medium-term expenditure framework, which is the outer years, the current year and the outer years, and then of the specific KPIs. And then I'll zoom into the specific KPIs for the 24-25 financial year, and then also the quarterly breakdown of those indicators. So the first one being the program one. Now, program one is driving the priority one of the 6th administration, a capable ethical development state. And then as a department, we've developed an outcome of resilient, ethical, and capable DPW. And you'll see that the structure of those KPIs the KPIs are structured in context of that outcome. The first being the ethics and fraud perception rate that we are concluding now to do over this financial year, 2024-25. And then that there are components within that, the 7 criteria or components within that, where we will be looking into how we then develop and contribute to an ethical state. And that will also link to what we call the fraud risks that we've picked. There's a top 5 fraud risks that also emanate from the previous investigations, proclamations within the leases, and some of the investigations that we carry with which we normally find what we call systemic issues, were then built into this ethical aspect as well as capability of the state. The second indicator, 1.2 compliance rate, which is a basket of key compliance. I talked about the 20. I raised it in the legislative aspect. There's a total of 46. But we have the total of 20, which also are linked to the organization, of which the target over the period should be 100%. We also use the performance information level, which is what we present on a quarterly basis at the request of the committee to present quarterly performance, where we also demonstrate the level of performance on the scorecard of the APP that we would then provide. And then linked to that will be the financial performance level. Chair, when time allows, at the end of this presentation, I've got a high-level presentation Word document that I can also show to the chairperson, where we have broken down each KPI and what will be the specific budget that we then have allocated to that KPI as a way of aligning 1.3 performance information level as well as financial performance level, so that there will be that correlation or an assessment of how each rand is used in terms of delivering those KPIs. Vacancy rate, we have targeted the 10%. This is on the basis of the 12% where we currently are. And also, as we discussed yesterday, that the move towards realizing the target, or rather the move towards advertising and filling those positions after the lifting of the moratorium on the vacancies, we should be able to see a decline in this. At some stage, we were, I think, last financial year, in one of the quarters, we did present a 10% vacancy rate, and then we moved to 11, and then moratorium 12, and then now basically what it's demonstrating is that it is highly possible that we should be able to breach the 10% and move beyond 10% going forward. And then from this vacancy rate, we then have to disaggregate these. Chairperson, as you were saying, it's human rights. We have targeted 50% for women because we're sitting at 42% currently in terms of actual performance against a target of 40. Now we have moved it to 50 for the next financial year. And this is linked to that vacancy rate and the reinforcing of positions at an SMS level for women. And that will be able to push us to 50%. And then with persons with disabilities, we have moved the target from 2%. This is now a national regulated target of 3%, all government departments. We have moved it to 3%. We will be focusing on that, as well as the approach that has been taken, guided by the DG, on how we have ring-fenced some of those to actually meet the target of 3% or even go beyond that. So this is how we are also responding and contributing to the national call on addressing the issues of gender imbalance as well as persons with disabilities and beyond that. But this is also further broken down in terms of the work opportunities that are created as well as the massification programs in targeting the historically disadvantaged individuals. And then what we've also done, Chair, to give effect to this whole process of ensuring that we manage the vacancy rate as well as human capital in the organization is also the approval of HR delegations. We've sort of put it in this APP so that at least there will be that delegations with the broken down mechanism of how we seek to then achieve that. And then lastly, Chair, in giving effect to that ethical conduct and driving that 1.1 ethics fraud perception, Chair, you will recall that 2 years or 3 years back, we presented on the ethics officer and the approach going forward, and also linked to the 2016 structure. We are in the process of appointing the ethics officer 1.8 to then drive the organization in terms of those ethics. There are quite a number of functions that will be dealt with, from conflict management, resolution, addressing the overall aspect of consequence management, as well as issues of ethics committee in managing that. That also includes the issues of what you call lifestyle audits, lifestyle investigations, as well as lifestyle reviews. So that will now be included into that. And then the number of business processes from an ICT point of view, this is where we are. Business processes, I identified 9 modules over the 3-year term, and then this will be automated. The figures in brackets, they represent basically 25, 26, 26, 27, 28, 29 financial year. 9 in the current financial year, 9 in total, sorry, over the 3 years that I've just given the breakdown of in terms of 5 in 25, 26, 2 in 26, 27, 28, 29, 2 as well. Then the number of business solutions, we are currently conducting an assessment of ICT systems. That's linked to what the findings was made and what also the CFO presented. We are looking at that assessment as well. And then lastly is also to look at developing a business case as well as implementation on the property solutions to address the issues around the management of properties. So that has also become a system that we are looking at as a part of it. Chair, then the next table will be the breakdown of the 24-25 of the very same indicators in terms of the quarterly breakdown. I'll be guided by Chair whether I should go through of them, but in total, Chair, I'm also going to highlight this part, Chair, where you're saying where you do not see the targets, Chair. Especially if I look at indicator 1.1 ethics and for quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, there are no targets at an APP, because those are more process/activity driven processes, which are then embedded into the operational plans of the organization. But when we come to the portfolio to present, we will be able to say in quarter 1, it's not a target, but this is where we are in relation to the activities towards achieving the target that will be represented by that specific quarter. So that then it's not seen that nothing is happening. So we are demonstrating that, Chairperson, those activities in that regard. So that is the breakdown on a quarterly basis. I'll touch quickly on this to just demonstrate that 3% women, persons with disabilities as well, 30% throughout. Ethics officer appointed, and then we are looking at 5 business processes to be automated, broken down. Yesterday we talked about some of them that we are also already automated. And Chairperson, this is done in-house. No service providers. It's done in-house, these business automations, and I think as a way of building capacity within the organization is also saving the state some money internally in that regard. The ICT assessment, we already doing that assessment as highlighted in the previous one, and then we're looking at by the end of the financial year we have implemented the property solution. Having done the business case as well as looking at the different phases of that. So we've broken it down in terms of how we are going to go around implementing that property business case. Program 2 is integrated planning and coordination, is in two programs there. One is intergovernmental as well as professional services. Now, intergovernmental plays the role of a stakeholder and ensuring that all the stakeholders are included in the operations and management of this. And this is where we develop the sector plan. We continue to develop the sector plan as part of your coordination aspect of it to ensure that there's coherent in terms of government plans across from national as well as provincial and local government, particularly on infrastructure, Chair. What we've noticed is that your infrastructure is built, whether it's a province or a national, but then you find that if there are issues that are experienced at the local municipality in terms of bulk services or the provision of electricity. So this seeks to then look at a coordination and ensuring that we have a coherent plan that when we have then, whether national or provincial has constructed a facility, it is also supported with bulk services and it's ready for, right? And I think those are some of the issues that we've picked from an assessment of this that created challenges within the government machinery, where infrastructure is deemed to be what we call the white elephants after construction because of the lack of coordination. So this is the indicator that then seeks to then drive from an infrastructure point of view. Now, and built into that would be the SIPs 4.6, the SIPs that will then also be reported on in terms of infrastructure. Let me also clarify the numbering here. The numbering 2.1, it means that it's program 2. 2.2 is program 2, which is intergovernmental, right? And then 4.6 is program 4. Now, why is it split in this way? It's because it's speaking to the outcome of integrated planning and coordination, which means that the number of 6 or SIPs that are driven by ISA in program 4 fall within this outcome of integrated planning and coordination, where we collect all the information within the SIPs component to show the integration as well as the planning mechanism in government. So that is the sequence of the numbering, Chairperson and honorable members. Then also, we're looking at a number of SIPs in construction, together 6 that are completed. These are also in the Minister's Performance Agreement, where we are targeting 18 SIPs to be completed over a period of time, the 3-year term, as well as SIPs to be constructed over a period of 3 years, 45 of them broken down into 12, 15, and 18. And then also, inherent in that, because we are dealing with the capital fixed conformation, Chairperson, in the MTSF, there's also an indicator that speaks to what is the infrastructure as a component, or rather infrastructure as a percentage of GDP. Now, this is where this analysis or the trend analysis within the private sector and the government sector would be looking at that contribution. And this is linked to the impact statement of the department, infrastructure-led growth, where we're looking at how infrastructure will be used as a lever and a mechanism to improve on growth. And this is the measure of capital fixed formation, which has also been broken down over the MTF, as well as the period of 15 from the private sector, as well as 7% from the public sector, giving us 23% target of capital fixed formation or percentage of infrastructure as a percentage of GDP. So this then will be assisting to look at those trends and to demonstrate our extent of infrastructure giving rise to growth. Then also in contribution to, as I highlighted earlier, to energy crisis, we're looking at number of green hydrogen projects registered as SIPs to also contribute to the issue. This is also driven through the National Infrastructure Plan 2050, aligned to the National Development Plan 2050, where 3 projects over the MTF period will be used to unlocking permits and regulatory challenges and licenses within the component of that. So there are a number of stakeholders involved here, or a number of government departments, but we've narrowed this in the context of the role of Public Works / ISA in giving effect to the support and to other implementing departments. And then we're also looking at the project close, which will also reflect the rand value of those projects that have been closed, and as well as that rand value will also contribute to those to that analysis I spoke to about of infrastructure, of capital fixed formation as well, to give effect in terms of the trends of the infrastructure overall in the department. Because we are dealing with a number of stakeholders within the intergovernmental space, there are quite a number of disputes that we come across. And I think the presentation from the CFO touched on some of the client departments where we manage disputes, disputes from leasing, disputes from and then also regulatory interests, particularly when we deal with bills. So this is basically to how best we resolved those disputes, as well as dealing with the protocols within the spheres of government. So we're targeting 72 over the 3-year period of how we measure and manage those disputes. The idea, Chair, is more of a risk mitigation aspect where we deal with we intervene as early as possible so that we don't have this dispute delaying project completion as well as other initiatives within government. Then again, in the context of integrated planning, the EPWP comes in now in terms of 3.1, number of progress reports produced to reflect the work opportunities. Now, this is purely on the basis of the coordination aspect of EPWP, where it coordinates with that. I'm going to speak to one of the annexures called the consolidated indicators that speaks to, that gives a breakdown of all the reporting bodies and their specific targets, and then they are then consolidated into a report that is then where work opportunities will be reported. So this figure, in terms of the custodian of the public works through EPWP, will be measuring all of those number of progress or reporting bodies through a report. Then 7.1 is Program 7, which is the real estate investment services under PMTE. This is the regulatory aspect where we're looking at the consolidation of the all client needs from user asset management plans, and then are consolidated into this custodian asset management plan that then is submitted to National Treasury. This is often submitted in the second quarter of each financial year. So it's submitted once, and it's also regulated in terms of GIAMA, and then we submit that once per year, and it's 3 over the MTEF period. And then still within that is also looking at 7.2, number of properties for letting and strategic development. These are additional KPIs also in relation to the minister's priorities, where we have identified the properties, in this case over a period of 3 years, 1,200 properties identified and confirmed for letting within government properties, within government. And this is also part of a planning and coordinating, where we then have to engage all the client departments and how we then best allocate those properties. And then we also identify other properties for strategic development, working together with all various stakeholders within the spheres of government. And then 7.3 is basically looking at the standard designs, guidelines for correctional services, SAPS, DHA, and develop. I think one of the issues is also looking at, I think from an ISA point of view, they talk about what you call frequently designs, I'm losing the term, but it's basically about particular standards that are set for the construction of some of these properties. So we've also embedded that into ensuring that we develop those designs and guidelines for these specific client departments. And you see that these are within the security cluster, which is basically within the mandate of the department. And then in terms of precincts also looking at how we house all the different government departments. If you're looking at a triangular point of SAPS, correctional SAPS, Home Affairs, as well as the courts, as a way of how to bring services to the people and then closer to the communities. So we're looking at 24 precincts that will be looked into developed. One of the precincts that we have talked about earlier on, you will see that is part of the SIP, the Salfocop precinct as well, to house some of the government departments. And then there'll be other. I will then also express and give you details of the various areas where we have identified precincts to be developed. This is now a quarterly breakdown, Chair. Suffice to say, to avoid repeating myself, this is just a quarterly breakdown, but I'll quickly zoom into some of the critical ones, particularly with regards to this one of precincts. So we have 8 precincts that have been planned. You will see that one is in Maritzburg, in Stanger, as well as Gunye Precinct, Kokstad, Polokwane, Carolina, Harwich, as well as King William Town area. So these are broken down in terms of ensuring that we then work. And if you look at these are provincial and municipality located, and that's why we talk about integrated government planning, and then this is where it comes in terms of how do we work together in terms of spheres of government to deal with that, Chairperson. The third one, Chair, outcome that we are managing, Chair, is the sustainable infrastructure investment. This is largely driven by construction. 8.1 is the construction by program, as well as ISA in some cases where we talk about infrastructure development. So this is where we talk about all the design solutions completed. We have 363 over the MTEF, and the number of projects to be completed within agreed period, and projects completed within approved budget, as well as infrastructure handover. Now, this we take cognizance of the challenges that we presented from client counseling, cash flow issues, as well as some of the areas. There's an investigation that the CFO highlighted on the cancellation of projects at a tender stage. So those are things that we are also embedding, being conscious of the challenges we are facing, as well as developing a mechanism and model on how we engage client departments on the confirmation of budget as early as possible, and ensuring that there's a proper scoping of projects, as well as in the capacity internally and externally with the service providers and contractors, to ensure that then we manage and monitor these projects to ensure that there's one aspect that also CFO talked about of project managers monitoring the budget. There's consequence that will also result in irregular expenditure / material irregularities. These are some of the internal mechanisms to ensure that there is proper mechanism of monitoring of these projects by our own on the ground, to ensure that there's due diligence in the construction of these projects. Then number of PMUs, Chairperson, we have also, and honorable members, we've also looked at the project management units, and basically looking at the reinforced tasks of construction, to ensure that we monitor these projects that are administered by the Department of Public Works. So we are establishing PMUs and to ensure that they are fully capacitated and operationalized. So we're looking at 11 over the MTEF period, 6 and 5 for the outer years, and then also as a way of improving the delivery of projects. We're looking at 10 key projects to be implemented, about 170 that have been earmarked, 70, 60, and 40, the breakdown over the 3-year period, as well as also as a way of quickening and speeding up this process of contractors. We are also setting up panels of contractors, as well as panels of professional services would be established as well, to ensure that then we move with speed on construction. There's proper guidance mechanism or monitoring mechanism, as well as the delivery of those panels. This will also be linked to your contract management aspect as well. Then also specific projects now. Specific projects is the bridges that will be constructed. As yesterday highlighted that the minister was opening one of the Welisizo bridges. So we've also got 288 bridges, 96 per year, over the 3-year term, where we then will be looking at those bridges as well as part of that infrastructure coordination. So you can see that the bridges also contribute to sustainable infrastructure investment, which will also contribute to that investment analysis and eventually link to the gross capital fixed formation, and then overall the jobs that will be created from an economic point of view, as well as the socio-economic imperatives of safety, particularly for learners and crossing dangerous environments from school and also back home. So these are some of the socio-economic imperatives through the infrastructure development that will assist the communities. And then number of projects approved, BOT and ROT. Now this goes back again to infrastructure development and mechanism on how we then also tap into the market. through the build, operate and transfer, as well as repair, operate and transfer mechanism to also deal with the issues of infrastructure, and how also we leverage on our portfolio, as also was highlighted in the strategy that was presented by Mr. Sibande. Number of spatial economic development frameworks for new harbors. Now, this is our contribution to the Operation Pakisa, but through the mandate of Public Works in terms of the managing all the harbors. So we have so we start off with the groundwork of ensuring that you've got economic development frameworks that will then shape the overall value chain of those environments from the economic activities that will happen there, as well as how the communities can also benefit from this and participate into that whole framework. So this will be then 8 are earmarked for the 3 years, 3 broken down in that regard, and then also develop those plans for those small harbors and operationalize them to also bring about that ecosystem within the harbors. So one is the management of those leases in the harbors, but at the same time, we're also creating a socio-economic ecosystem for the communities within those harbors. There will also be spin-offs such as when the ships dock at the harbors, there will be maintenance required, and then there will be also economic opportunities for those communities as well. This is now the breakdown of all those indicators, Chair, on a quarterly basis for 24-25 in terms of our designs all the way up to the infrastructure that will be completed overall. So in total, we are looking at internal in the department about 124 projects to be completed, and then we also have efficiency measures within agreed period of time as well as within the budget. And then these PMUs that will be established, as well as the 10 key projects, 10 key projects that I alluded to earlier on. This is just a repetition, Chair. Then productive assets, Chair. This is where you're looking at for the intended purpose. When we look structuring, this is where how you find the real estate management services, the leasing portfolio, and that's where the optimization strategy comes in as well. So we're looking at a number of private leases reduced within the portfolio of the department, as well as savings that will be realized, as well as a percentage increase in revenue generation. Those are the issues that we are saying from the pre-leases that we have actually closed on in terms of the lease agreements. We also look at the potential savings by renegotiating the leases, especially, and this tallies again to the presentation made by CFO to look at when we negotiate these new lease agreements with the client departments and landlords. We're looking at what would be the potential savings that would have realized, particularly to reducing the month-to-month, as well as ensuring that we then have the right rates that are then agreed upon and finalizing the lease agreements, as well as the revenue that can be generated from the state-owned properties, excluding harbors. This is purely on just the state properties, where without looking at the harbors, about 20% of that revenue to be generated. Chair, we are bringing another aspect which has been a thorny issue, particularly on stolen properties, the Operation Bring Back program, where we are looking at 3 components within that. Right, one is to regularize. By regularizing, we're basically saying there will be some form of properties that are actually occupied, but there is no lease agreement, there's no proper arrangements in terms of for the usage of that. This is where we then looking at, once we've done the due diligence, we're looking at the possibility of regularizing that, and then it forms part of your lease agreement and we regularize that. The other one is to rectify. The second component is to rectify, particularly when some of these were stolen or rather misused, is to find a way of how we then look into rectifying those properties and also bringing them into proper recognition within the books of the department. The other component is the cover, where now properties have been stolen and they are now in the hands of other persons, and is to look at how we then recover those as properties of the state. So this will be worked in tandem with or in collaboration as part of your overall asset register strategy of verifying the existence, as well as making sure that it appears as a state asset within the asset register or in the asset register. So that is the bring back of we're looking at targeting 1,267 properties, broken down 200, 450 and 617 over the MTF period. Then those properties that are utilized and unutilized state-owned properties, we will then look into them, how then do we let them out. Utilized but not fully, and unutilized, totally not used. We'll be looking at how then do we then use them to be let out so that they are fully utilized. And that will also talk to the issues of the revenue that can be generated from fully utilizing those state properties as well. Percentage of new private leases signed within a maintenance plan. Now, this is a deliberate effort to say any lease agreement that we conclude should and must have a lease agreement. a maintenance plan, to avoid all the challenges that have been raised by client departments in respect to maintenance. And this is a discussion with the landlords who should provide a maintenance plan to deal it. I think yesterday's discussion, there was the DG gave an example of the Potchefstroom Magistrate Court, where we're currently finalizing that maintenance plan. These are some of the examples of ensuring that the longevity of our buildings are also supported by that maintenance plan after construction, as well as taken occupancy. So these are some of the examples, even with the private leases, engaging the landlords to ensure that there's a maintenance plan, because those are their buildings. We encourage them to treat them as their long-term future, long-term investments, and therefore should also take into consideration future dividends from a longevity of these assets. Then in terms of land reform, we are also contributing in terms of the hectares of land from our portfolio for infrastructure programs, as well as socio-economic objectives. Some is the release of land to Eskom servitudes, as well as dealing with, especially when they talk about the distribution aspect from Eskom of power lines, they can also look into that. Areas for solar panels, these are some of the contributions in terms of certain land areas that could be used for such socio-economic imperatives as well. And then for your human settlements is land that can be used for the development of human settlements, housing, as well as rural development issues that can be used for land restitution, and as well as agricultural purposes. We're also looking into those distribution, about 26,827 hectares that has been identified over the 3-year period. Then in terms of productive asset, now this is 10.1. This is now talking to the asset register, where we then looking at the national and provincial immovable assets registered to assess for compliance. This is twofold. One is a integrated government. It's a coordination and planning across government, national and within single mind, or with a view of a single repository in terms of asset register, to again have a state, an overview of the assets, the quantum of assets in this, for the country. At the same time, is also productive in the sense that those assets that are registered are actually being used for the intended purpose. So this is basically looking into that, to looking at the registered assets for compliance as well. And then 10.2 is movable asset physically verified to validate existence, as well as asset conditions. Again, the condition of those assets also has a rent value when we're looking at the finalization of the books. Number of registered immovable assets aligned to municipal valuations. There's a municipal valuation role that also we need to then align into that, because that will also have implications on the value of those assets. Conditions that are assessed. Now you look at 11.3, this is now facilities management. 11.2 facilities management is those conditions assessment, as well as critical components that will have to be completed on components, as well as the actual prioritized properties. Prioritized properties condition assessment 879 over the MTF period, and then critical components about 1,760 components. And then also to deal with the issues of reactive and proactive maintenance is through the number of total facilities that we then have to conclude on to reduce that reactive maintenance, about 32 over the MTEF period as well. We've added others, Chairperson, number of government workshops operationalized in insourcing model services, all regional offices. This is a program that is currently running, where in some cases, like with Pretoria Regional Office, where we've got a workshop running. So these are some of the examples where we're bringing that operationalization of those workshops as well. And then in terms of renewable energy, as well as contribute. This is now through the IRREP, the Integrated Renewable Energy Resource Efficiency, in terms of all the state facilities. We are going through this with working together with National Treasury, GTEC. They've got phases, bid windows in terms of the procurement processes of the preferred service providers. And the intention here, Chair and honorable members, is also to how to then from a demand side or from a supply side, from a demand side of view, is basically the use of these facilities where we can generate renewable energy from waste to energy. They also talk about solar panels, etc., as well as from the supply side, where now you're then looking at that going into the grid to also lessen the pressure on the grid, energy grid. So that's basically is the intention in looking at that. So that is currently underway in terms of phase 1, bid window 1 of construction of projects that will have that impact of contributing to renewable energy through IRREP. Then we also say that one of the things is to develop a policy on the maintenance plan. I talked of two things. One, there was a completion of the landlords where we say they must have a maintenance plan. Now, this is a maintenance plans in terms of our state properties, the stock of the state, and ensure that we also improve the longevity of our state facilities that can. And I think that also speaks to the presentation made by CFO to say, how do you tilt the balance from the private sector to state-owned and bringing the state-owned properties into a particular condition that they can be used, that will also assist in terms of tilting or skewing that balance as well. And then lastly, which is a component we again is also occupational health and safety, where we'll do inspections and make recommendations are made from a construction as well as leases to ensure that we adhere to the Occupational Health and Safety Act in terms of all of our properties, about 10,489 properties, and recommendations to be actually dealt with, to be adhered to and implemented. These are the quarterly breakdown, Chair. I won't go into deep detail. Then the outcome 5, transform built environment, that's largely looking at number of unutilized vacant state-owned properties assessed and disposed in relation to Giyama for GPV purposes. 15 have been identified to house those suffered GPV violence, as well as ensuring that we also contribute by also looking at emerging landlords who want to participate into the mainstream of the leasing by looking at the awarding certain companies in various categories according to the BBBE Act, as well as Code of Good Practice. We're also focusing on 70% for those that in category A and D, as well as those that are in the category above, four and above, 10% of that in terms of letting out of those leases. So that is basically through that property empowerment policy to focus on as well as transformation agenda within the property space. And then in relation to the built environment skills level, which is also part of the built-in environment, you see that is 2.4. It is through professional services where we are looking at the beneficiaries that are participating within the DPW skills pipeline, working together with our entities such as Council for Built Environment, as well as the schools and awarding of bursaries within the built environment as a way of creating that school by that pipeline to ensure that we have the necessary skills within the built environment, of which some will then find themselves working within government. Some of them that participated in the program have actually gone into municipalities as well. So it's still within the state. So that is basically how the program is also looking to that. And also looking at professionalization of that skills, we've developed a strategy for the public sector on how we then professionalize within the built environment those skills. And I think, Chair, this will also tap in, will link into the issue of vacancy rate, as well as within the built environment, that we have an in-house program within the, as well as looking at the overall national strategy on the built environment, so that they also build on future skills. And this strategy is looking into that component. And then also linked to the infrastructure projects that are earmarked for over a long-term period, we're also aligning that to the skills that will be required in future, to ensure that then you have readily available skills within that space when they are needed. Then number of graduates in the built environment in source within government working programs, we have looking at 4,000, 1,000 next financial year, 1,500 and 2,000 in the outer years, to ensure that they also participate as part of the capacity building within the built environment of various disciplines, to ensure that we also contribute and assist in the built environment. And then again, in transformation, this is when, from a regulatory point of view, we're looking to say, how do we transform from a regulatory point of view? We then use the expropriation bill that will be introduced. This was already achieved in the 2021 financial year. So now we are providing that necessary support to parliamentary processes to ensure that the parliament is also assisted, as well as getting the bill enacted, until the bill is enacted as an act. Public Works submit a Public Works bill. We are working on that as well, draft bill. And yesterday we talked about the work streams that have been constituted to contribute to this Public Works bill, and looking at all these 58 pieces of legislation to see the impact of that bill as an overarching bill as intended in giving context to Public Works. Amendment of CIDB board, CIDB Act is also continuous, because as we reflected in the Q3, that consultation are still ongoing. So this will also continue until it then is presented to Parliament and it becomes a parliamentary process, and then we'll continue to provide that support. Similar to development of Public Works General Laws and Amendment, as working together with Office of the Chief State Law Advisors, as well as certifying that we continue to look at those bills that need to be repealed, obsolete, and also redundant, and are in conflict with some of this. So this is also partly part of that Public Works process that we're dealing with. Together, again, also the Infrastructure Development Act amendments will also be submitted to Cabinet in relation to that. So much work has gone into this space, and also working together with the Minister of Finance and also the DPSA to ensure that there's concurrency in terms of contributing to the Act, as well as contributing to this Act. So that will continue as well until it also becomes a parliamentary process, and then we'll continue to provide that support. So this is a breakdown, Chair, of all the quotas, which I won't go into detail. And then the second last opportunity as I close, Chair, on this part of the program performance, is optimized job opportunities. Now, 3.2 is basically the program on EPWP. Now, EPWP is looking at phase 5, reconceptualizing EPWP phase 5 as we conclude on the phase 4. So that is the part of the optimizing job opportunities, where there was a target of 5 million in phase 4. We're also looking at those figures. Once those figures have been finalized, then to determine the breakdown of those figures in terms of the proposed EPWP phase 5. We continue with the number of validated work opportunities reports, which will also contain the work opportunities that have been created. For over the MTEF is about 148,418 work opportunities to be created in relation to Public Works, not reporting public bodies. I will also touch on the consolidated reports and how they are structured. That gives effect to overall work opportunities created by public employment programs. We have also looked at how many work opportunities that can be created through the EPWP program when we're dealing with cleaning of government buildings, your government buildings. So there will be a figure, the 1,551 work opportunities that will be created in basically specifically in cleaning government buildings. We also look at opportunities by reporting public bodies, which is also ministerial priority, where we'll also consolidate that information to actually determine the extent of job opportunities that would have been created by public bodies as part of that consolidated indicators. We're also looking at approved plan on one township, one recycle center in partnership with the private sector. Basically now in dealing with the issues of recycling, which is also part of the a lot of recycle that's happening, materials that can be recycled, that can be collected as waste from different townships. I think this is part of a cleanup as well in the townships. So this is also has a potential of creating work opportunities, particularly idling youth. That can also create these opportunities. Number of youths that are trained on maintenance of solar panels in parliamentary villages, and this is from the installation, maintenance, and that we'll be looking at the youth that can be targeted within the space of maintenance of those solar panels. So it's a deliberate effort to also target 201 over this MTEF period to look at those youth that will also assist it. And then that will also contribute to some of the maintenance aspects, as I talked on, about the in-house capacity as well as other areas where we can have work opportunities that can be created to actually deal with some of the maintenance aspects within the organization. These are the breakdown quarterly, Chair, which I won't go into detail, but I've just given the overview of those targets. And then the last outcome, Chair, and honorable members, is dignified client experience. Again, this I'll link it to the earlier indicator about dispute resolutions as well as stakeholder matrix. So we're dealing with all the clients to ensure that our clients are satisfied on all fronts. From the number of one of the clients being in the prestige portfolio, where we deal with the planned state events and ensure that we provide and support them with movable structures and ensure that then the deliverables are achieved and the intention and the outcomes are achieved as well. And this is where the prestige will be critical in ensuring that. So 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4 are program 5, which is prestige, and ensuring that. And then in addition to the 3 indicators that we've been measuring from prestige of planned events as well as work list as well as movable assets within a provision of movable assets within a particular, we've added 5.4, Chair, where we established 10 key solutions for provision of movable assets, where we need to look at the reestablishment of those 10 key solutions, quick solutions to ensure that with the delivery time is also managed as well as the quality of the delivery of those movable assets. 5.5, we've added installation of alternative backup power solutions on secure so that there's a quick response rate on the backup when there's energy crisis or during load shedding. So we're also looking at those alternatives to ensure that they're embedded into a program to avoid the being reactive, and then it's a system that then is looked into to ensure that it gives effect to the prestige portfolio when the power is needed. Preventative maintenance contracts to reduce maintenance, again within the prestige framework. We're also looking at that as similar to the one of the other 90,000 plus facilities where we're looking at preventative maintenance contracts so that we reduce being reactive, and then we have a seamless approach to doing that. So these are the quarterly breakdowns in terms of managing the client stakeholders within the prestige portfolio. And then, Chair, in terms of the risk, we are managing this through the risk. We have identified what you call institution-wide risk or strategic risk, if you will, and we have got a top 13 of those risks that we are managing. One, which others are administrative and deals with the internal controls. Others are external, and we'll have to look at ways of how we mitigate and action plans on how we deal with that. In terms of resilient, ethical, and capable outcome, we're looking at cybersecurity. We've taken note of a number of government departments as well as private sector where they've fallen prey in terms of those cyber attacks. Our mitigation is to deal real-time analytics and enforce security protocols, as well as firewalls, to ensure that we limit the number of attacks, or in fact, we have a zero tolerance on the attacks. There may be a number of attempts, but we deal with a zero tolerance on the attacks, particularly that will then have implications on our systems. External shocks, we take into consideration external shocks. This was also informed by the COVID-19 that we also experienced, but we also have other external shocks that we have. And Chairperson and honorable members, you remember that last year in Joburg as well, we lost over 70 persons through fire. Those are some of the things that we also look into: fire hazards, as well as floods, and other future pandemics that may arise as well. So we've built into that through what we call the business continuity plans that we've been built in. Our business continuity plans, they focus on 3 areas: crisis management, which has elements of compliance, as well as the second aspect being a disaster recovery, which is basically the protection of the state ICT equipment, but at the same time also recover some of the information that may have been damaged, and to ensure that it is. And then the third aspect is the business resumption, that is the continuation of the business. So that is basically covered in that. Evacuation drills and stuff, those are general things that we basically do to mitigate that. Fraud and corruption, I spoke about that in terms of the fraud risk. That also touches on the issues of ethics, as well as a capable state. We also embedded some of the findings that came from the Zondo Commission, as well as some from the proclamations, where we've also embedded in terms of that. So awareness and training is continuing, consequence management, anti-corruption hotline, and the corruption strategy that has been approved. We also have a speak to DGDM ministerial protocols as well, that there's an issue and you feel that there's corruption, is the responsibility of this, our responsibility to also report it. So this is a mechanism that I also created to that. And we also deal with media statements, managing positive and negative aspect around fraud. Sometimes there'll be issues that are raised around fraud, but we also need to respond in terms of how we manage what you call the media tonality in respect to fraud and corruption, but generally also the perception that is out there about public works. Perceived stakeholder interest and interference, chairperson and members of the committee. This is where now we're dealing with that issues of how do we manage stakeholders and bring them together towards a common interest. Because they've divergent views and others have other interests and others influence. So this is where we're looking at the power of some of the stakeholders, the influence of some of the stakeholders, and how do we bring them together. And this is where we do it through MINMEC, TechCAMIMEC, and stakeholder fora and other joint task teams. We've established joint task teams where we manage disputes as well, so that then we are also looking at that we are moving towards a common interest. That is a risk that we also are dealing with. And the CFO also alluded to those task teams as a way of dealing with some of these issues and disputes. Sustainable infrastructure investment, we're dealing with project hijack. We talked about the mafias. We also talk about social facilitation, invoking the law enforcement agencies in other areas, as well as other stakeholder forums, so that the community is aware of the project in their communities, and also ensure that they also participate in those forums. So that's some of the mitigation strategies that we're dealing with in terms of that. Productive asset for the intended purpose or intended purpose. So we're looking at asset structure, as infrastructure asset failure. I think we've spoken a lot about that, and committee has over time been very emphatic on this point of the failures and deficiencies within the organization on infrastructure. And then I think this also cuts across in terms of projects that are earmarked, rand value is allocated, but then the project is never completed. Those are some of the things. And then service delivery is compromised. So that's where now ISA also comes from a project preparation to ensure that those projects are shovel ready as a mitigation strategy, to ensure that the full scale of the project is then understood and then is delivered. I also alluded to the point that through the intergovernmental forums, to ensure that the project is completed, whether provincial or national, but the local municipality in terms of bulk services and energy is also built into the process. So this is also mitigating those aspects and in that. We also deal with scenarios and as well as term contracts to address some of these failures, particularly from a facilities management, where we are saying to reduce, to move away from being reactive to procure to preventative maintenance. We also look at this. We also deal with possible lockouts by landlords, and I think this is the indicator where we are continuously dealing with the landlords to ensure that I think one of the possible lockouts is payments. The CFO alluded to that, as well as disputes. Disputes arising from payments, but also the issues around maintenance by landlords as well, where clients then are dissatisfied with the landlord. And this is where now the issues of engagement with the clients and the landlords will come in as well. And that's where also it touches on the issue of ensuring that the private leases, they already have a maintenance plan built in to try and minimize some of these conflicts. So this is also dealing with that. In terms of transformed built environment, we basically is also part of the stakeholder engagement, where we also look at the transformed built environment, which also is similar to the integrated coordination and planning. But one of the challenges that we've also picked is possible collusion and fronting, particularly misinterpretation or abuse of procurement regulations, as well as your cause of good practice and empowerment policies. We've also seen that there's a number of collusions which may affect the rate of transformation, and therefore internally in the department we're also looking into those issues of procurement regulations, contract management, to ensure that these issues are then understood and following the codes of good practice when we deal with the procurement aspect, to ensure that then we have a transformed built environment, and the skills pipeline, all of those are coming into play as well. Optimized job opportunities is a demand risk for certain designated groups. The target is also the perception and the thinking, particularly around the youth. There are certain programs that are being rolled out by EPWP. I'll just give one example. I think the cleaning of the cemeteries. Some of the youth don't feel that is something that they can actually do. I think it's an issue of dignity on their part, as well as the perception. So those are some of the things that we then have to, and that's where the technical support comes in for those that are rolling out this, but it will come with that, and also the awareness aspect of it, that will also come in to ensure that then the participation of them also has implications in terms of equipping them with the skills, and then they can also, look at it as a way of also being entrepreneurs, as well as looking at other niche markets in which they can actually demonstrate those skills, so that then we manage that demand risk for certain environments or designated groups. Then the last one, client experience, which touches largely on the reputational damage. That's where we're bringing SLAs, communications, alert briefs, and media statements. But overall, at the program level, we are also looking at those 10 key projects to actually deal with those aspects as well. Chairperson, that is the two components. The next one is the budget structure and estimates. Through you, Chair, I'll allow then the CFO, and then I will then conclude, Chairperson, through you, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, okay. There's someone who's going to add something?
Yes, is the CFO, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lwazi. You can move, Lwazi, to the next slide. Lwazi, can you make it bigger? I can't see properly on my side. Thank you. So, Chair, in terms of our budget, as Lwazi has indicated, our APP. So, for the main vote, Chair, we have 7.6 billion based on the allocation that we received from National Treasury. I must highlight, Chairperson, that there is a significant decrease of our budget. If you look at the current year, which is 23-24 financial year, whereby our budget is 8.7 billion. So about 1.1 billion has been reduced by National Treasury, which is a serious concern, Chair. And it's mainly affecting EPWP significantly, because If you look at the budget for EPWP for 23-24 financial year, it was 3.1 billion and it is now 2.3 billion. So I thought, let me highlight that, Chair, because it's such a significant decrease, and it goes throughout the MTF in the outer years, where we witness a similar significant budget cut. So I thought, let me really bring that attention to the committee, and it affects work opportunities that we've planned to create, where actually the high level of unemployment in our country is so high, and the program that is meant to alleviate poverty and give food to our communities will be seriously affected by the budget cut. However, there are still engagements with National Treasury. However, the budget process has been concluded with such a high budget reduction. If also, Chair, you look at programs where maybe one need to highlight other significant reduction, it's on program 4, where it's property construction, police and research, where it was 5 billion for the year that we are concluding, but now it's sitting at 4.5 billion, which also is a significant decrease. It also affects the delivery of property management that we were referring to earlier on, because that's where PMTE also is funded, Chairperson. So there is less allocation that is given to the portfolio that we are managing. And Chair, this is also affecting all clients departments, because this budget cut that we are experiencing, clients departments also are experiencing. So the impact actually is huge for the PMTE. Then, Chair, on the economic classification, the compensation of employees, Chair, it's 622 million for 24-25 financial year, which also, Chair, at least that is an increase because it's linked to officials that we are having. So at least we are fine with that. Goods and services, there is also a slight decrease, Chair, whereby in the current year it's 694 million, but now it's 634 million. But at least for goods and services, we are also expected to implement cost containment. I don't think we are at high risk in that area. Then in terms of transfers and subsidies, as I outlined earlier on, our budget for 24-25 financial year is 6.3 billion. If you compare with the year that we are concluding, it was sitting at 7.5 billion. So there is a significant decrease, as I have already outlined. And similarly with the outer years within the MTF, where we see a decrease from 7.5 billion to 6.5 for 25-26 financial year, as well as 26-27 financial year, where we see it's 6.9 billion. And this is not sustainable, Chair, because it may continue to decrease in the next budget cycle. Chair, in terms of the details of the transfers and subsidies, I've already highlighted areas where there are significant decrease, such as public cooperation and like non-profit institutions, where, Chair, it's sitting now at 689 million, whereas in the current budget, it's 1 billion. And that's where the program also of EPWP are affected, where really there is such a significant reduction. Then, Chair, the total, as I indicated, is 7.6 billion for 24-25 financial year, and then 25-26, 7.9 billion. And the last year of the MTF, it's 8.3 billion. But if you can move. Lwazi, next slide. You could go to PMTE, Lwazi. Thank you. Can you make it a little bit bigger? Thank you. So, Chairperson, on PMTE, the budget for 24-25 financial year, it's 17.6 billion. And these are the details. I'll just highlight areas that I need to bring to the attention of the portfolio committee because of time. Chair, I think the areas of really concern, you can see, Chair, if you compare with 23-24 financial year, we're sitting at 21 billion. So this budget has gone down significantly to 17 billion. One of the key areas is the area of municipal services, where clients are taking over that function because of the challenges that we were faced when the decision to devolve municipal services occurred. However, over and above that, Chair, there is an area also of concern where on DPWI transfer, which is a money that we get from the main vote, where we had 4.2 billion in the current financial year, that money will go down to 4.1 billion. It's not a huge decrease, Chair, per se, but it is decreasing instead of increasing, given the number of programs that we are doing, trying to improve maintenance to our facilities, because we use that money to do the work of PMTE for all facilities that we are having. As a result, then we have a total budget of 17.6 billion. And for 25-26 financial year, it's 18.7 billion. And 26-27 financial year is 19.8 billion. As I indicated, Chair, it will depend how our economy improves. We may experience further budget cuts. Loaz, if you can move. Loaz. You can move, Loaz. Can you make it bigger? Sorry, Loaz. Yeah. Can you make it? Yeah, Chair, this one then is how we are going to utilize this budget that I was referring to, because I was dealing with the projected revenue that we are expecting. Then, Chair, if you look then, I won't go program by program, Chair. Rather, I will focus on how this money will be utilized in terms of economic classifications. So for cleaning, Chair, we are having 393 million for 24-25 financial year, 412 in 25-26, and the last financial year is 431. However, I would want to just focus on significant areas, particularly your maintenance, which is 1.7 billion. Which is a slight decrease if you compare to the current year, where we were sitting at 1.8 billion. That's what I was referring to, Chair, to say we have a portfolio of about 80,000 properties that we are having, but the budget for maintenance is sitting at 1.7 billion, and it continued to decrease for the reasons that I've mentioned earlier on. Then compensation of employees, I think we are fine on that one. There is no increase, but it's based on the inflation or increase that we are expecting, based on labor negotiations. Is not to say we are getting additional budget for new skills or new capacity. Basically, our budget remains the same. Then, Chair, on operating lease, we are sitting at 6.1 billion. That one is based, Chair, on the leases that we sign with landlords on behalf of clients. You can look at it, Chair, if there is an increase. While we're saying we are renegotiating, it's because of the new leases that clients will request as the demand for capacity increases. When it comes to leases. That then deals with the current payments in terms of the economic classification, where then We are at 12.4 billion for 24-25 financial year and 13.1 billion for 25-26 financial year. And in the last year of the MTF, we have 13.9 billion. It's very important also, Chair, to note that in the current year, we're having a budget of 16.2 billion. So now we are having 12.4 billion. Then on the property rates, Chair, the amount has slightly increased from 2 billion to 2.1 billion. Which is okay, we are not worried about that. However, on infrastructure, Chairperson, this is the area where we ought to be getting a lot of money, because if we want to make an impact on our facilities, that's where then we need to put more resources. However, due to budget constraints, the reality is that we are not getting what is expected. As a result, then for the current year it was 3.3 billion. It has been reduced to 3.2 billion. Particularly, Chair, if we check the client's budget, it was 1.6 billion, and now it will be 1.7 billion, and it increased in the outer years. As much as it is an increase, Chair, but it's not sustainable, because as finance departments get budget reduction, they come during the year and say we must do further cuts, because they are experiencing budget cuts also on their side. So hence I'm then saying the client's budget is not sustainable because of such issues that we are facing with our clients. So in total, for the capital budget, we are sitting at 3.2 billion for the 24-25 financial year, and 25-26 financial year is 3.4 billion, and the last year of the MTF is 3.5 billion. So in total, Chair, as I indicated, for PMTE, 24-25 financial year, it's 17.6 billion, and 25-26 financial year is 18.7 billion, and the last year of the MTF, it's 19.8 billion. Thank you very much, Chair. I thought let me just highlight those key issues because of time. Thank you, Lozi.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Chair, so that then almost concludes the annex charts I was talking earlier on, Chair, which are also in the APP. The Annex Chart A, there were no amendments to the strategic plan, so we also need to attach that, so we're communicating that to the committee. Annex Chart B then deals with conditional grants, that's EPWP. And then the critical one, Annex Chart C, consolidated indicators. This is where now we have a breakdown of all the reporting public bodies and their specific targets. And then according to the MTSF, Public Works is the lead where it consolidates all of that, hence the reports. And then the contributors are then these various public bodies where we sort of, this is one of the issues that was raised as a finding that we then sought to correct by including this as consolidated indicators. Then we have Annex Chart D, which is what we call standardized indicators. Chairperson, what we have here is that we've got all the 9 provinces within Public Works where they have developed 4 specific indicators that are similar across, and then we are as nationally overseeing that process, and we have included it as well in our APP as guided by the MTSF process, where we have regular meetings, and that's part of those intergovernmental structures where we present the sector plans and those performance plans, where we show how the public works sector as a whole is performing performing on infrastructure as a sector. So these standard indicators speak to that. We also have Annexure E, which is our contribution in terms of the district development model, where the support is provided to Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, King Cetshwayo District, as well as other programs in relation to schools program. And our principals, the minister and the deputy ministers, are also instrumental as champions in various areas, Chair. So overall, Chair, that is our presentation, and we recommend that the committee note the APP as well as the medium-term expenditure estimates for the department. Chair will be guided by you, where we have broken down these KPIs, and then the budget allocated for this, but will be guided by you. The reason for doing that, Chair, is that we also want to demonstrate that the challenges that we experience from the budget cuts, they have implications on those deliverables, so that you will see that there will be that correlation when we then present at the end of the financial year. Thank you, Chairperson and members.
Thank you for the presentation. In fact, all the presentation. Thank you so much. My name is Lindy Wemchowo. I'm taking over. DM, you will be the last to speak. I don't know, did you want to speak before the members?
We can take any questions from the reports, and then we'll talk from there. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thanks, teacher. Members? It's time for discussion, asking questions. Okay, Honorable Suwisa.
Thank you, Acting Chair of the session. Greetings to everyone. Let's welcome the presentation that was done by the DG and his team. I have only a few comments and a few questions, Chairperson, pertaining the one is from the audit report and the other one is from the APPs. There's a slide that speaks about multidisciplinary professional plan, which is on review. When will this plan be completed? I think when you speak about an audit plan, you talk about time frames. By this time, I'll be finished to do the following thing. We are still speaking about, maybe I missed it somewhere, Chair, but if I've missed it somewhere, I apologize. But the issue of Circular 135, if we received it, I'll check through emails. If not, can the Circular 135? They also speak about interim guidelines that they've used. Can we also see these interim guidelines that they've used in order for them to put the audit plan in action? And then, Chair, I would really appreciate, we can't just say something is in progress without a timeline. It can be in progress for the coming 35 years. It can be in progress for the coming 100 years. Can we get all those points that are stating that a plan is in progress, whatever is in progress? Can we get specific dates as to when is this thing going to be done? It can never be ongoing. This is a plan to make a turnaround for the Department of Public Works, specifically and the entities. Chair, another thing that's concerning is the rate at which private owners are requesting to be paid and the rate at which is demanded for public works to charge other people. Now, it means that the department itself is working at a loss because some of their properties they are renting from private owners, which means that they are paying whatever the private owners are saying. And then they're taking some of their properties and renting them to private owners, and then they are being told that they are charging too much. Then they have to lower their whatever amount they are charging per square meter, which means that it's at a loss. And I'm still stating it, Chair, to say that I don't see what is the reason why, if the department has got properties to give to client departments, and then they opt to go for private departments, and then they take their own property and rent it to private owners. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't really balance because they don't make money by virtue of using that system. We've seen with the audit report, they do not make money. Why not take your own buildings and give them to the client department? Then we are not going to be dealing with, we are paying more and then Tina, we are receiving less, because that's what's happening right now. You are spending money that is not there, which is a concern. Let's go to the APPs. And there's one comment I want to make, Chair. I'm not going to be long because I'm still in load shedding. I'm not even sure if I'm audible. The presenter says infrastructure failure. There's a budget cut. And then there is the issue of infrastructure failure. I want to put it on record now to say infrastructure failure cannot be blamed on budget cut. But this is due to the lack of maintenance that needs to be done by the department to the client departments or the sister departments, because of the department is not doing what needs to be done to make sure that whatever property of theirs they're giving to the sister departments or the client departments, they are not maintaining it. Some of these departments have decided to do their own maintenance. Some of them have even taken over to do their own infrastructure and their own projects and their own contract constructions because of the department is dismally failing them. That is why there's going to be a budget cut when it comes to infrastructure. So it can't, the failure to give us infrastructure cannot be blamed on budget cut, but it should be blamed on the failure of the department to do what needs to be done to provide infrastructure for client departments. And this is something that we've been talking about. One question I also have is, what are the reasons for the cut of the budget cut for EPWP? What has led? Because we know some of these MPOs are not doing what needs to be done. So I'm putting the question to the department to say, what has led for the budget cut for EPWP? I'm going to pause there for now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Suwisa. Honorable Sihlalo.
Recording in progress. Good morning still to the colleagues from the department as well as the colleagues here in the committee. I also won't be long. I think we've had a very long presentation from the department, very technical in nature. I just wanted to perhaps check in as far as the issue that is missing in the APP that is under legal cases. There are 2 cases that we need to look at the outcomes thereof. So I want to just then get in to mention or to ask whether there is any progress or the status of those particular cases of former employees that won cases against the department, for unfair dismissal when they took the case at the Public Service Bargaining Council. We know that the former minister took those particular cases under review at the Labour Court. The department had to keep funds available in case these staff members needed to be paid out. The APP must also then be able to allow themselves to deal with this particular matter in as far as the status of those cases, in as far as the funds that are still being kept in this particular manner, and whether they have been paid out or are these cases finalized, and whether the department must still be able to report on it to the committee. I think I'll just ask that, Chair. I think the other issues in as far as Honorable Siwisa is concerned very much covered many of the issues that we've raised with the department before. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sihlolo and Honorable Siwisa. I'd like to welcome all the reports. Mine just on finances. I think it was last week we received the report from the AG. AG told us that on leases, the department lost 10 million. On Bait Bridge, we lost 17 million. Then the AG recommended that on leases you must have the department must have the special investigation on the issue of overpaid. And then there is Mamelodi Court. On Mamelodi Court, we lost 3.8 million. And then there is issue of Telkom Towers. On Telkom Towers, you are using just one building, then 8 are unutilized. Then you spend 5.92 million. So I think if you can clarify it as on this one. Then on Melisizwe Bridge, both you overpay. There is overpayment of both bridge. If you can clarify us on those ones. Thank you so much, and thank you for your well prepared presentation. I think DM and you will be the last to speak, and greetings to you and the DG. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I think thank you very much for the questions that have been raised. I think I will allow maybe that we note what Honorable Siwisa has raised in respect of the progress that is being actually highlighted in the reports. I think indeed we need to put the dates in all of those reports so that it actually has got timelines as per the members' suggestion. And I believe that will also give us an opportunity to look towards something where there's a date. I think we accept that. And I will ask the CFO to just respond on the issue of the finances. And then also I will ask the DDG Corporate Services to respond on the cases that Honorable Sihlolo has raised for these employees that have won the case against the department. And I think we will then do the final conclusion on the matters. Thank you very much.
Maybe before that, if they can clarify on slide, there is on the construction expenses, 2021, there is an allocation of 8.42 million, but subsequently there is zero allocation. If they can, it's slide 63. If they also can clarify us on that one. Thank you so much.
Okay, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the members that have raised the questions. I think the DG on the timelines has already articulated, but what I must indicate, Chair, most of the timelines are up to 31st March. They are not going beyond that, except the few. It's just that we were avoiding so much details in the presentation. So our sincere apology about that. Then there was a question on the circular 135. I think DDG Makubela will comment on that because that circular was requested by this committee. I thought it was circulated. Then the interim guidelines, Chair, you will recall that we are now going to implement the ROT program. So hence then the circular 135 is seen as an interim guidelines to deal with the letting of state properties. Honorable Member Siwisa, on the rate at which private sector is demanding money compared to us collecting money, where also you are saying we seems to let more properties to private sector compared to clients' departments. Actually, Chair, just to respond to that question, the rates that I was displaying was that the majority of our properties are occupied by clients' departments, about 94 to 96%. So that's a significant number. I even said about 59,000 properties are occupied by clients' departments. So when I was referring to the rates per square meter that it's far below market, actually is what clients' departments are paying us, not the private sector. When we let out to private sector, they pay market related. So when we say then the debtors that are not paying us, actually it's clients' departments. We have given them significant numbers of our properties, of which they are not paying for those properties. Even where they pay, it's far below the market rental. But when we let to private sector, it's at market related. But DDG REMS can then provide more clarity on that. On the budget cut of EPWP, Chair, what were the reasons for that? Chair, what I will say, we're not really provided reasons for that. It came as a surprise because throughout the budget process, there was no such a significant cut, but early Feb, National Treasury communicated in writing to us to say they have further cut 30% on EPWP. We do refer to the budget process that National Treasury is doing. However, there are discussions that will continue to happen with National Treasury to also seek a similar clarity that the member is seeking. Those discussions will be underway into time, Chair. Then I think Mr. Mahlangu will respond on MIs. I wouldn't want to respond on them. Let me then conclude, Chair. I think I want to go then to slide number, I think you said 63. I'm looking for that slide. Chair, I'm not sure which amount you were referring to on slide 63. I'm trying to look at that slide. If you can repeat your question, Chair.
Okay. This one says it's 20, I think it's 2021. There is an allocation of 8.4 million. But another allocation, same, there is 0. It's the under construction expenses.
And the expenses. Okay. Or construction expenses. Okay, I see that one. Okay. Chair, if I can comment on that one, Chair. I think that was a misallocation in 2021 because the construction expenses actually they are on capital payments where we have refurbishment. We have a budget of 695 million. And so on. In the same year, we had 695 million. Client capital, we had 1.1 billion. And DPW infrastructure, we have 550 million. So these are the figures that we cannot change because they were already audited, Chair. So as a result, then if you look at all the other years, the amounts are 0. But there are still amounts below the line. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Are you done?
I am done. He will then make comments where he wants to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for your response. Is DG or DM?
Yeah, I think, Chair, we will allow Rams to then respond on the leases related questions that were raised. Thank you, Chairperson. Through you, Nyeleti.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, DM, DG, and Head of PMT and my colleagues. I need to respond on the 10 million that was raised by Honorable Njobo against the leases overpayments and the fact that an investigation has been done or needs to be done. From an operational basis, we had received MIs from Auditor General on those. It's actually about 3 leases, if I'm not mistaken. 2 of those leases have been fully recovered. One of the leases is not yet recovered because we're still busy with the calculations of exactly how much, and the landlord is disputing some of the amounts. If I may just add there, Chair, that our system is designed such that if we pick up an overpayment, that money that has been overpaid, it's simply just offset the rentals of the landlord. So it's not a difficult thing to recover. The other part that then we need to do is that where we do find that it was caused by an official, then we do institute disciplinary or consequence management to that effect. So far, there was just one case that we dealt with in the Pretoria Regional Office, but the money is being recovered, Chair, and the investigation, I think Mr. Mahlangu can then talk in terms of where they are with the processes for the investigation. On the Circular 135, Chairperson, I'm not sure what could have gone wrong. We had submitted the document, or at least according to my information. What I can do, Chair, is to liaise with the parliamentary officer to make sure that we resubmit the document. It is ready and it was signed quite a while back, and it is currently in implementation. There were a few glitches along the years that we were working through. Therefore, we had implemented an interim guideline. The interim guideline has helped us, Chairperson, to start with the letting out process of the state properties. Like the CFO has said, when we let out state properties, we do let out the state properties at market rentals. So what we find is that there are historical leases that people have been paying close to nothing or nothing at all for the use of our properties. So the interim guidelines was actually helping us to start with those properties where there's currently occupation, especially the harbour properties, where you find that somebody was paying 40,000 rand per month, and we have brought that list to over 140,000 rand a month, and that has increased our projected revenue to more than 101 million rand, and we're still ongoing. It's still early days, Chairperson, but the progress is very good. We have finalized the list for Circular 135, and we're gonna go out on tender before the end of the month. And on one of the slides, you will see that there are numbers that of the properties that we have finalized. I think the number is 777. I just don't remember the slide number, Chairperson. I think from a REMS perspective, that will be my response. Thank you very much.
Let's get Mr. Loazi to respond on the MIs. That will be probably more or less one, but last of the responses, and then I'll close.
Thanks, DG. Apologies, DG, just to be guided on the specific matter on MIs.
Can I help, Lord? The question raised on Bay Bridge that AG identified amounts that needed to be recovered. There was an issue of Mamelodi Court of 3.8 million, and Welisizwe bridges. Those are the ones that the and also Telkom Towers. The chairperson also raised the Telkom Towers. Thank you, Chair.
All right. No, thanks, for Chair. Let me start with the specific matters on Bay Bridge. Chair, the matter is being handled in court now on the Bay Bridge issue of the company that is actually registered a case in court and has claimed itself to be liquidated. And that's the one part. And then there's a claim also that we are still dealing with. That is also a court case. That process is still underway, Chair. And I think once we've concluded that, we'll then bring a register of MIs that we can then present the full scale of those components that we're dealing with. With regards to Mamelodi, that also is under investigation, Chair. We've just, in fact, as we speak, I've just concluded the preliminary investigation report on some of the areas, and I think if Chair also allows and the committee members, we can also bring that. We're still processing that to finally find conclusion on that. Suffice to say, there are quite a number of issues on the part of the community that we're picking up, and there's also issues on the part of a contractor that we're picking up in terms of injections into the project. But those are some of the things that we'll bring to the committee once we've concluded this report. On the Welisizwe, Chair, what we did pick with the AG was that the AG had made an estimation on the Welisizwe on the basis of the, what's the word, not trestles, on the basis of the beams that were used on the bridge. But subsequent to the investigation we made, we then also reported back to the AG that it is not actually a material irregularity. It was because of the beams that had to be brought to a particular space. The cost we incurred in looking for a route that will allow those beams to reach the point, and that would be also a cost which was at the start of the project were not initially identified as the. And then there were also steel beams on the length of the bridge that had to be constructed. The length of those beams, there's a specific word they use. The length of those beams had to be re-engineered so that it covers that. And those also were additional to the cost, which we were able to prove those costs as well. So not necessarily that it contributed to material irregularity, but it's also dependent on the response from Auditor General in assessing that cost breakdown that we've provided in justifying the cost that was incurred. On the Telkom Towers, Chair, what we've done is we've provided a response, particularly on the differences in relation to the monies, and the AG has subsequently returned to us as 2 weeks back to then provide our plan of action. So we are currently looking at, and we're currently providing the plan of action on how we deal with the issue of Telkom Towers. whether we go the same route of refurbishing and as well as looking at different ways of how we can revive that aspect. But there's another component of a possible investigating that aspect of telecom, what led to all of those. And I think that will then help us to give the full scope of what transpired in the context of telecom towers, and it will also give us a direction of how we then respond and address this matter of telecom towers to avoid it recurring. So those are the processes that we're starting to deal with to address this issue of material of responding to telecom. Although they did mention that it's not necessarily a financial loss per se, but it's the effect that it has not been unoccupied. It has not been occupied, and that results in a potential loss per se, but not necessarily a financial loss. So those are some of the things, and I think there was also a submission that we've also written internally on how we're going to deal with the issue of telecom towers. So at that level of material regularity, those are the activities that we are busy working on in finalizing, and then provide the responses back to Auditor General, who will then assess our responses and give feedback. Thanks.
I think I just maybe wanted to get clarity on Honorable Setlolo on the two cases, but before I could respond, because it seems like there's quite a number of cases. I don't know if there are specific cases you want us to respond on, Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, you can continue, teacher. Sihlalo. Honorable Sihlalo. Continue, teacher. I can't find Sihlalo.
Oh, okay. In the absence of clarity, I'll just indicate that in the event I'm not covering anything that would have been raised by him directly, we'll provide the written submission. But maybe just to highlight one case of Ms. Nomzingisa Tukela, who has won the case or the arbitration award against the department for reinstatement. We have since Chairperson written the implementation of that, which I think I've signed personally. It's with the principals to finalize the approval because they are falling within the SMS level. She was once our regional manager in the Eastern Cape. And then in respect of other cases that are currently sitting in labor court is the one of the dismissal of Mr. Noloyi Sontwana. That one is still pending, Chairperson. So, as well as the review of the irregular appointments emanating from the PSC report. So, I will just be limited on those ones. And then the other cases of Ms. Swansea Matthews and the late Dark Avenda, which I think it won't necessarily proceed, was referred back to the GPSSBC by the Labour Court, so it's not been finalized. So I think that would be only the one for Swansea Matthews. Chair, I think I will just stop there for now, unless there's further clarity, to which I will request your indulgence, Chair, that we provide a report, a written report, because the question was not specific in terms of that. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Teacher, thank you so much for your response. And thanks all the response we received today. DM? Deputy Minister?
Chairperson?
Okay.
Yeah, Chairperson?
Yes.
I was advised the DM was actually flying out.
Okay.
We can then request that the chair can maybe close on our side because we've covered all the questions. I don't think there's any other area maybe I might want to say just except to thank the committee and for giving us an opportunity to provide the reports and respond on the questions raised by the committees, and also to further commit to provide that which we have not provided in the upcoming further committee meetings. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stolle. DJ, oh, I didn't greet you. Okay. DG and the DM in his abstention, Public Works team. Thank you so much for coming to our portfolio committee today. I think, Nola, we're done with the department. Nola?
Yes, Chairperson, we are done with the department. I would like to, however, advise that procedurally, we won't be able to carry on with the next item of consideration and the adoption of minutes because the number of members is not conducive for